A recent study has shown there's an accumulation of microplastics in the human brain. In fact, it showed that there is as much accumulation of these microplastics to equal about 1 teaspoon. This study was in Nature Medicine. And what the study also found was that there's been an increase of about 50% of microplastics in human brain tissue from 2016 to 2024. In today's episode of Reset Monday, we're going to talk about what this means for your health, what this means for your brain health, your hormones, and what you can do about it. So today, we are going to reset your brain. Being aware of microplastics is one of the key things you can do each and every day in order to take care of your health, your longevity, and make sure that you are hedging your bets against any chronic illnesses. The brain is protected by what's called a blood-brain barrier. And what that means is that it helps to prevent dangerous things from getting actually into your brain. But the problem with these microplastics is they are what are called nanoparticles. So they're so small that they're actually able to cross the blood-brain barrier and get into your brain. So how do these microplastics actually get into our bodies? It comes in a multitude of ways. We can get it from skin contact, we can get it from breathing things in, and we can also get it from ingesting things. So let's first talk about ingesting. So that's going to be your foods. Think about when you go to the grocery store and you get your vegetables and you put them in a plastic bag. Those plastics can actually break down little microparticles and get on the food. And then you bring that home and you cook it and you eat it. The other thing is if you purchase foods, marinades, salad dressings, anything in a plastic container, even things like yogurt, anything in a plastic container is going to have microplastics in it. And if we talk about things like milk and juices and anything that had to go through a processing and it's gone through tubing, the process of going through that plastic tubing brings in all those microplastics into the food. The wax paper that the butcher puts your meat onto for you to bring it home, there's microplastics in there. So it is everywhere. So if you're going to go to the store and you're going to get meats and fish and things like that, when you get home, you immediately want to take that out of that wrapper, and then you could put it in like a glass container and freeze it that way. I tend to take my meats, my fish, I put them on a tray and I freeze them like that. And then I freeze them first, and then I take them out and I'll wrap them. So there's a lot of different ways that you can help avoid the plastics. Now let's talk about contact. So plastics touching our skin. A lot of our body care products contain microplastics, contain toxic chemicals that go in through your pores, but also your clothing. Think about anything that is a non-natural fiber. So cotton would be great, bamboo, but things like polyesters and other unnatural, man-made type fabrics, those are actually going to leach microplastics into your skin. Even worse when you sweat. And this is why there's a big target on exercise clothing. You put on your workout clothes and then you sweat, and now those pores open and those microplastics have a fast track into your bloodstream. So these microplastics go in, and then the liver has a hard time filtering them out, and they can go straight to the brain. So we're getting a lot of our microplastics from the things we're putting on our body, like our body care products, as well as the clothing that we're wearing. The other way we can get them is through inhalation. So think about even dust particles in your home. If you're dusting regularly, you're vacuuming regularly, that's going to help to keep that dust and the microplastics down. But then also there are things in the air that are like phthalates. Phthalates are it's like a plasticizer. Those come from things like perfumes and dyes and Glade plugins, and they're all over. So we really want to be mindful of what we're breathing, what we're putting on our body, and then what we're putting in our bodies. And control what you can control. I know that can be a little bit overwhelming, but the biggest source of our plastic consumption is plastic water bottles. So I want to give you a few stats when it comes to plastic water bottles, because we are drinking plastic drinking water through plastic on a daily basis, and we're drinking in all those microplastics. So just to give you some idea of plastic water bottle consumption, worldwide, over 1 million plastic water bottles are purchased every minute. And this totals to 481 billion bottles annually. I mean, think about that. 1 million plastic bottles a minute. Crazy. And we consume, as Americans, 50 billion plastic water bottles each and every year. And that's about 13 bottles per person per month. I think that's kind of a low number, actually, because I'm sure people are drinking a couple a day. But this one source is showing 13 bottles per month. But I think, again, that's an average, but that's still a lot. So I really want to encourage you to get yourself a stainless steel water bottle and fill that up from home. Now, there are also plastics that come through our water filtration system. So even if you switch from bottled water to your tap water, you're going to go from 90,000 particulates to 4,000. Now, water from your tap also has its other issues, and that's a whole different conversation, a whole different video. But just to say, if we can get rid of these microplastics, if you can get a better filtration system in your home and then fill your stainless steel water bottle, you will be reducing a lot of your exposure to those microplastics. So that's where we get these microplastics from. So with this exposure, how does it actually affect us? So think about anything brain. So we're talking about the brain going into inflammatory state. And this is going to be a driver of things like Alzheimer's and dementia and other neurodegenerative issues. I mean, we could even think about people who have ADD, ADHD, kids with autism. Anything brain related is going to be affected, and it can actually worsen and compound itself. Now, during this study, they not only found microplastics in people who were sick, but they also found microplastics in people who did not die of a brain disease. So what that means, though, is that the people who did have something like Alzheimer's and dementia, Parkinson's, and some other brain disease, the amount of microplastics in their brains was significantly higher. So we are exposed to them no matter what, but then you may be predisposed to them if you have a genetic history of being able to accumulate those even more. So you want to pay very close attention to making sure that you're getting the proper filtration out of the system, meaning doing things like supporting your liver for detoxification. And we'll talk about that in a minute. But what this also does is it disrupts hormones. And so many of us are walking around perimenopause, menopausal with hormone disruption, and even men's hormones, testosterone levels are half of what they were 50 years ago. So we have to pay attention to how these plastics are affecting our hormones. And many women are really struggling through perimenopause and menopause, and they feel like they are on a roller coaster. And this is one of the ways to start getting off the roller coaster, is to minimize the plastics that you're exposing yourself to. You're not going to be able to get rid of all of them. You can control what you can control, but then start to mitigate the damage that they've already processed inside of your body. And again, we'll talk about that in a second. But especially for women, thyroid dysfunction, hormone dysfunction, estrogen, testosterone, the whole gamut can really be affected by this. Oxidative stress and brain fog. So what that means, oxidative stress is your brain is designed, your whole body is designed to rebuild and detoxify through processes that are taking place that you don't even know they're taking place. And so if there's too much what we call oxidative stress, the body will have a hard time purging that, and it causes tissue damage, and then it causes a breakdown in the brain tissue or the body or the liver or whatever organ it is, but we're focusing on the brain today. So we really want to minimize the opportunity for this oxidative stress so that the brain doesn't get damaged. We don't want to damage our neurons, our neural pathways. We want to be able to think clearly. And of course, that brings me to brain fog, just that simple thing, brain fog, memory loss, poor quality sleep. These are things that are going to be affected by having inflammation in your brain caused from these microplastics. And then, of course, just your increased risk of these neurodegenerative diseases. So if you have something going on like brain fog and poor quality sleep and ADD, ADHD, you can't quite think clearly, you're not as creative as you would like to be, maybe you're having anxiety, depression, some mood swings, any kind of mood disorder, this can be a sign that you have something toxic in the brain and brain inflammation. And this will put you at greater risk for things like Alzheimer's, dementia, Parkinson's, stroke, and even just migraine headaches. So a lot of people are like, I have a migraine and I'm going to be on this medication for the rest of my life. No. Let's figure out, why is your brain so inflamed that it's causing you that level of pain on a daily basis? So when we think about the damage, let's just talk about dementia and Alzheimer's for a minute. Dementia rates have tripled over the past 20 years, tripled. So that means that in 1999, there were 150 deaths from Alzheimer's and dementia, and it went up in 2020, it was over 450,000. That's just way too much. And I know when I was a kid, like, we never heard of Alzheimer's or dementia. It was a very, very rare occurrence if somebody had this kind of a brain issue. And now we have memory care homes all over the place, which is great that we have that, but we really have to get to the root cause of why this is happening. And there are some studies that show that higher levels of microplastics in the brain were there with these people. So if you had some kind of cognitive disorder, you had higher levels of these microplastics. So there is a correlation there, and it could be a contributing factor. Okay, so all that aside, what do? We really want to be able to reduce these microplastics in our lives. And like I said, trying to avoid plastics at all costs. When you start to pay attention, you're going to realize it is everywhere. It's all over. Like, we cannot avoid it. So control what you can control. And so you want to be using glass or stainless steel for your food and water. So don't store food in plastic. Don't heat food in plastic. Don't put hot food on a plastic plate, even a paper plate. Stop using paper plates and paper utensils. It's okay to wash. It's okay. When we're using these plastic utensils and trays and things like that, a lot like the black carryout containers that we get from the store, that's actually recycled from old electronics. And those electronics have lead in them. They have all kinds of heavy metals. Think of the wires and all of the just those pieces. They all have heavy metals, and so those actually get recycled into our food carryout plates. So then you put something hot on it, and now you've got a toxic bomb in your food. I always ask them to put put some foil in the plastic container, put that first and then put the food. So yes, it's aluminum. I mean, it's kind of pick your battles if you're getting carry out, but I definitely don't want my food sitting next to recycled electronics. Filtering your water is key. Now, we talked about your stainless steel water bottle, but then also if you can do reverse osmosis in your home, even if you're able to do reverse osmosis just for your tap water, your drinking water, that would be really helpful. And then also make sure that you're taking minerals, because reverse osmosis can leach your body of minerals if you're not careful. So you definitely want to be making sure you have high quality electrolytes on deck with that. But definitely get some kind of filtration system in your home. And then, like I say, you want to skip the packaged plastic processed foods. That's kind of a no-brainer. We talk about really getting rid of all the processed foods that you can, pizza boxes. I mean, again, you start to think about all the places that plastic, and then the waxiness on a lot of the paper, the wax inside your Starbucks cup, those are all plastics. And then you put the hot liquid in the cup and then you drink it. So it is all over the place. Again, just starting to think about where you can minimize it. Tea bags, this is a big one. So if you have tea bags, there are some tea bags that you can get that are more natural, or just try to skip the tea bag altogether and just do loose leaf tea. and then you can steep that into a pot and then just pour it through a strainer. But I would try to avoid tea bags at all costs, because some of them you can find that have plastic-free bags, but buying loose leaf tea is just as simple. And then again, I mentioned earlier, making sure you're vacuuming and dusting regularly, because those plastics, they're nanoparticles, and you just want to minimize what you're breathing in your air. Now, what do we do to detoxify our brain? So making sure that our diets are low in any hyper processed foods. So anything from a box, a bag, we really want to minimize processed foods and have lots and lots of good fruits and vegetables. Berries are wonderful. Berries are brain food. And if we can stick with things like our good green leafy vegetables, anything from the brassica family. So that's going to be cabbage, broccoli, cauliflower, kale, collard greens, though all of those vegetables have a compound in it called sulforaphane, which is a massive antioxidant and incredible for fighting cancers. So it's going to help fight cancer on the micro level for you. They're highly anti-inflammatory. And of course, they're high in fiber, so they're going to be really good for your gut health. So anytime you can start to work in more of those types of vegetables, and then good, high quality sources of protein, chicken, fish, make sure you avoid farm-raised fish. Farm-raised fish is a huge source of microplastics, believe it or not. So you're going to opt for the deep water, wild-caught sources of fish, and then avoid anything farm-raised. Staying hydrated. Many of you are not drinking enough water on a daily basis. So really shooting for at least half of your body weight in ounces, because that's how we flush out the toxins. And then again, from a stainless steel water bottle if you're on the go, glass if you're home, so avoiding plastic even when you're home. And then sweating. Sweating is an incredible way. So if it can get into the pores, it can get out of the pores. Now, if you go and you're outside, you're working, you're sweating, or you go to the gym, you really do want to try to take a shower as quickly as possible after that sweat. If you go to yoga, I go to yoga and it's a massive sweat. I immediately shower after. Some people just change their clothes and they leave. I'm hoping they go home and they shower, because it's such a massive sweat. It's such a massive purge of toxins. But then if you let it dry, now it sits on the skin and it has an opportunity to absorb back in. So you really want to make sure when you exercise and you're sweating, you're washing that off. And if you can get into a sauna and sweat 20 minutes of a good hot sauna, that's any type of good heavy sweating. Again, just getting it out through the pores, cleansing the pores. And then, of course, we did talk about detoxifying the liver, and those green leafy vegetables that I talked about, they're going to be really beneficial for helping to detoxify the liver, as well as things like milk thistle, sesame. There's many other things you can do to keep things moving through your liver. So those are, let me recap that for you. So making sure you're eating high antioxidants, low processed foods, high quality protein, staying hydrated, sweating, whether it's sauna or exercise, making sure you're showering after, and then boosting your liver detox health. So, all right, you guys, think about this. Your brain is the most valuable asset. And how envious are we when we see somebody and we're like, wow, I was with friends last night, and a girlfriend I grew up with, and her mom is 88 years old, and we went and we visited, and she was amazing, like top of her game mentally, emotionally. So if you found this helpful, please share it with somebody and let me know your thoughts. How are you feeling about the whole plastic thing? If you're sluggish, you're tired, and you can't think clearly, might be time to take that seriously. Okay, thanks for being here. I will see